And you're back with the Skeptical Veteran. Today I get to show off what a nerd I am. A while back I introduced my cat Isotope, and people thought that while a kind of befitting name, considering he's a Sphynx and looks like he's contaminated, uh, were curious where he got his name from. So I did a little short that I outlined or showed off a gamma scintillation calibration source. So let's see just how far the geekdom goes. Here you can see I have my spare webcam doing that feed, and then I have this program which is hooked up to my gamma scintillator, which is this device here. Now this basically is a crystal. It's a sodium iodide doped with thallium crystal, which is a fancy way of saying that it's a special crystal that detects radiation. When radioactivity, when a gamma particle hits one of the atoms in the crystal, it causes it to fluoresce, kind of flash. There's a light sensor inside that picks up that flash and then converts it and translates it into something that this software can read. Pretty fascinating stuff. So that being said, this is the source of Isotope's name. Let's see if I can get it to show you. There it is. Cesium-137 check source. This is 1 microcurie. It says there the half-life is 30.87 years. It is radioactive, and it was manufactured October of 2013. So I still have some time left with this source before it becomes too weak. Now, why cesium-137, you're probably wondering. Actually, you're probably wondering just how much of a nerd that I am and why I'm making this video, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Cesium-137 has a very distinctive photopeak. Now, it's like I was saying, radiation is light, and this software, which I'm going to fire up now, detects that light. So if we move this over to the check source, you see it just flew off the scale. So let's turn off the max. And at the top of this, I don't know if you can read that, it says CS137, which is, of course, my check source. So now I can see that, I mean, it's not perfectly calibrated, but it's calibrated close enough. So I can cover that with its lead shield and move it aside. And let's stop that running. Now, all of these sources that I'm going to be showing you today, all of these radioactive samples are NRC exempt. They are so weak that there's nothing to worry about. Yes, this check source does come with this nifty lead shield, but it's not really necessary. It's handy for not contaminating the environment. So like you can see here in the background, I have my little Geiger counter, and it's measuring 0.016 microsieverts, which is one of the many different dosimeter style or counts for radioactive exposure. You have rads, you have Rontgen, you have sieverts, there's becquerel, which measures volume, but this measures sieverts and in microsieverts. Now, in 0.016 microsieverts, where it is right now, is just your average background radiation. This is radiation that is just naturally occurring, as they call it, NORM, naturally occurring radioactive material. God, I can't talk today. But it's also things like from the sun, from gamma particles that are just floating, free floating through space. And interesting little side note here on there is actually a measurable background radiation from a satellite that blew up on launch. I think it was in the 70s or the 80s. As it was going into orbit, it blew up and dispersed all of the plutonium that was in it around the planet. The reason there's radioactive material in it is warm. As radioactive material decays, it creates heat. And satellites, while they like cold, they don't like that much cold. So the heat from the radiation helps keep the circuits alive. But as a result of this happening, now the entire planet has been contaminated. Of course, this low of a dose, who cares? But one of the things that's interesting is other things that radiation has been used for, radioactive material, specifically uranium. In the 50s and 60s, there was Fiestaware. Now, Fiestaware was just a brand of plates and saucers and stuff like that. But the orange glaze of this dish is created by a refinement of uranium ore. Now, if we take our Geiger counter and put it up close, you can see that the count is increasing drastically. Now, this is a inexpensive Geiger counter, so it takes it a while to calculate up. But now we're at 18 microsievert hours. So 18 microsieverts, a hell of a lot beyond your normal background radiation. Now, 18 microsieverts is, again, a laughable dose. You could sit with this under your pillow for the rest of your life and never have any ill effects. You're not turning into Hulk by using this for drinking your tea. But it is an interesting demonstration of how uranium has been used in other industries. Now, you can still find these things at antique stores, occasionally even at places like Goodwill. They've gotten better and more aware of people as they grandparents pass away. Their old Fiestaware just gets kept or gets thrown away and taken to Goodwill. So it's harder to find it at places that don't know what it is. But this is Fiestaware. That's what it looks like. That very, very identifiable orange color. The new stuff does not use uranium. It has the same color, but that's just because they've perfected the pigments and the dyes. So you can get something today that looks like it, but is not radioactive. You would need a Geiger counter to confirm that. You also have something that was called Vaseline glass. And this is just plain old glass that has had uranium ore crushed up and mixed in with it as it's being created. One of the things you can do, this is one that is reactive to the light. Now, my camera doesn't really pick it up well. You can kind of see it around the base here, the reflection of the green. It looks like it's just the flashlight is blowing out the color, but it's actually causing it to fluoresce a really brilliant light green. Really fun stuff. So usually when I go to garage sales, estate sales, antique stores, Goodwill, I'll actually bring a UV light with me just because sometimes you find this stuff and it's fun to play with and it's worth money too. Again, put our Geiger counter up to it and you'll see that it is not as radioactive as the Fiestaware was, but it does still have a decent amount of radiation coming off of it. It's jumping up to 0.74. So yeah, 0.74 microsieverts, nothing compared to that Fiestaware, which that Fiestaware actually isn't even the hottest piece I have. I have ones that are far more reactive or radioactive. But one of the things that is cool with gamma scintillation, coming back to our scintillating tool, is it can tell us what radioactive material is in something. Now then, let me make sure, yeah, my cesium check source is nowhere nearby. Set it way off on the other side of my desk, which that should also help underscore how harmless this stuff is. It's on the other side of my desk and this scientific tool can't pick it up. So that's how weak it is. But you can see the waveform that this is creating looks a lot different. There's a lot of other radioactive material in here that is interacting with the crystal. So let's take that away and we'll put the Fiestaware back and then restart the count. And you can see that, again, there are different peaks to the light. Now, one of the things that's cool about this is literally a fingerprint to where this uranium came from. It's not something I'm familiar with being done with just standard uranite or uranite. I think that's how you pronounce it. Forgive me. But uranium ore samples, I don't know if there's actually a registry, at least not a public one, that you can access for where these fingerprints identify them coming from. Um, in the government, there is actually a registry that, again, I don't think that it's available to the public, of radioactive signatures from reactor cores. And the reason for this is that if there's a breeder reactor that creates plutonium, that plutonium gets put into an explosive device and detonated. The fallout from that nuclear bomb will have a very distinct signature similar to this. I mean, as we can see, I will take that away and I'll put that one up. And again, we can see there is a different signature to this. Now then, with this registry of these core samples, the NRC and the Department of Energy, Department of Defense, they can actually go into the fallout zone and analyze it and say, oh, this radioactive material came from X location. And you can actually drill it down to what part of a reactor it came from, which is just really cool if you ask me. And again, this is uranium glass, so it fluoresces pretty colors. So what does uranium ore look like? Well, uranium ore actually looks like a whole bunch of different things because it's an atom. Uranium is an element, which means that it doesn't really have, I mean, there is pure uranium metal, but it has to be refined. And even, again, like anything, the refinement process, it's never going to be 100%, but this is a sample of uranium from Connecticut. And this is yeah, I'm not going to try to pronounce these names at all. I don't know why, but I am not able to talk today. There are also other cool looking samples. Back up. Like this one. This one is from the Congo. And it's pretty. But again, if we set it next up to the scintillator and restart the scintillator, now you can see again the energy coming off of this is a different signature. So if I were to have another sample from the same mine, it would have relatively the same fingerprint. Now, and it wouldn't be exact, of course, but it would be close enough that you would be able to identify it looking at these results. One of the things that's cool is when you can use the black light on something to check if it's radioactive. And as you'll notice, I mean, with a lot of these samples, it's not really fluorescing. There's that one. Let's use this guy. It's reflecting the light, but it's not reacting to the light. It's not a given that uranium is going to fluoresce under black light. And this sample I have, of course, does, which again, you can't really see. It's really cool to look at. I mean, this alone is one of the things that really got me interested in radioactivity and studying nuclear stuff at a very young age, which is, I guess, one of the reasons why I'm such a geek. But at any rate, so those are some of my samples of radioactive material. Now, all of these are NRC exempt. They don't require any licensing. I don't have to have any safe containment facilities or anything like that because they are such low yield samples. For instance, let's take the nice uranium sample that was fluorescing, put the Geiger counter next to it, and let's see where it goes. So it's up to 3.8. Again, these are microsieverts. Radioactive exposure in the sievert scale is safe up into the millisievert hours. Now, and millisievert hours, that's where you do need to start kind of paying attention. But millisievert hours, high millisievert hours is where you need to actually start to worry about, okay, I need to limit my exposure. Low exposure, low dose exposure like this, it's harmless. There's nothing to even shake a stick at. If this were reading like 50 or 150 millisievert hours, then I would definitely not want to sleep with it under my pillow. But microsieverts, they're a joke. Unfortunately, there's a lot of confusion that gets created by the fact that, I mean, there's rads, there's Röntgens, there's sieverts, like I said, there's becquerels, there's other scales, and each one is used for a very kind of specific scientific study, which is unfortunate because a lot of times it leads to misunderstanding with what is dangerous, what is not dangerous. But at the end of the day, this is one of the things that became a hobby of mine, and I did do some decent work with it, some fun research and some experiments. There was a site in Seattle that was a Navy kind of I think it was a depot that was being decommissioned, but it actually became off limits because there was radium in it, and radium is super radioactive. It is a alpha emitter, which in one hand, alpha particles are harmless because they'll bounce off your skin, but if alpha particles get into your tissue, then they are deadly. There's a survey actually I did. It was a kind of a joke survey that's practical on my YouTube channel that is what's called the cookie test. You have 4 cookies on a table. One of them represents free neutrons, one of them represents gamma rays, one of them is alpha particles, the other is beta particles. With these cookies, one you keep in your hand, one you put in your pocket, one you throw away, and one you eat. The query is, which cookie is which? Now, you may know the answer to this if you have any experience in the industry, or even in OSHA, might know this one. But I'll go ahead and give you the answer. So go ahead and pause the video if you want to think about it for a minute, give it some thought, and here come the answers. The answers are the alpha particle cookie you keep in your hand because it's going to bounce off your skin. Alpha particles aren't going to do anything. Beta particles have a little more energy to them, but they won't penetrate through your clothes. So you can put that one in your pocket. Gamma rays, they go through anything. They will, I mean, theoretically, they'll even go through lead unless it's thick enough. So you're going to eat that cookie because the gamma rays are going through you one way or another. The free neutrons. Neutrons are fun. Neutrons bounce into other things and knock other neutrons free, which then makes them isotopes. Isotopes are radioactive. So neutrons make other things radioactive. So you want to get that as far away from you as you can. Get rid of that cookie. So there you go. Little piece of nerd technical know-how information, however you want to call it, you have. I've really enjoyed making this video. It's fun. I haven't used the scintillator in God knows how many years now. So now that I've got it out and I've got it somewhat calibrated, I think I might actually get back into doing some research. And as always, if you have questions or comments, please drop a comment, give a like, shoot me an email. If there's something you want to know, I can respond in the comments or even possibly shoot another video. And as you can see, this proves it. I'm not just a political channel. I am all about rational thought and scientific thought. To me, no subject is off the table. If it's politics, religion, philosophy, science, I want to share information because too many people are no longer interested in sharing information or letting the world speak. So keep your voice, keep the discussion going, and as always, take care of yourselves. You have a good one.